This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
The grand jury investigating the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez is now in its third week, and the people around David are starting to break. This last week, Robert Morgenroth, the general manager of David's record label and president of his touring company, spent 3 days being grilled by Deputy DA Beth Silverman. According to reports, he was overheard in the courthouse hallway, complaining that Silverman was being very pushy about why he never called police after learning a decomposing body had been found in his client's car. And a crazy thought, why not call police? His alleged answer, he didn't think it was his responsibility, not his job. And he just wanted to keep the tour going, like you do. Meanwhile, a female witness connected to the case reportedly refused to appear, prompting prosecutors to seek a body attachment order to have her detained and forced to testify. I know it sounds like weird, body attachment. It means we're going to haul you into court and make you testify. She's represented by the same attorney as Morgenroth. Retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer is with us to help break down what this pressure campaign on David's inner circle tells us about where the case is headed. So let's start there. Jennifer, Robert reportedly testified for 3 days straight. For context, is that unusual for a grand jury witness, someone who isn't the target, to be on the stand that long? What does that duration signal about what the prosecutors are after here?
Tony, it is unusual. For anybody who hasn't testified in a grand jury, that's just not how it usually rolls. You're in and out of there as quickly as you can. And obviously, the more you know, the longer you are on that stand. But 3 days is an inordinate amount of time.
Morgenroth was reportedly pressed hard on why he didn't call police after the body was discovered. His alleged response was that he didn't feel it was his responsibility and wanted to continue with the tour. I mean, it's a very corporate type response. Got to keep the money flowing, What's your thoughts on this answer, if in fact that is what he said? This is the alleged of what he said in the hallway that somebody picked up on. How damning is that to say, well, I didn't think it was my job? Is that a crime at that point, or is it just really horrible judgment?
Well, first, I always think about that telephone game just by reference, that always you're getting something and it's a few removed. We don't know exactly what was said. Nevertheless, it's nothing that could really be able to be held up, I don't think, as far as being responsible. He could get a small crime, like a misdemeanor crime, a failure to report. And depending on what else he disclosed, that's what I'm more curious about over those 3 days, Tony. What else did he know to be on the stand for 3 days? It makes me really wondering if he had anything to do with accessory after the crime, any charge like that could be charged.
Yeah. What do you think was meant by the prosecutor as being pushy? I mean, that seems like a very odd thing to have pointed out. What do you think that means behind closed doors? Obviously, we don't know exactly what was pushy about it, but that's quite a statement to make, isn't it?
Well, whenever you say something like that, how I think is adamant. That's what I equate it to. In other words, this wasn't just a gentle discussion about something. This was, listen, boom, why in the world didn't you come forward? This is what's going to happen with this witness, so on and so forth. So it seems like the DA is very forceful in her approach.
The fact that they were sitting there for those 3 days with the manager of David, and that is an inordinate amount of time typically for something like this. What does it tell you about what they know about this case, or don't know about this case? Is this something where they're like, all right, fill us in on everything that you know? Is that what's going on behind closed doors? What's your thoughts on what's going on there for those 3 days?
Yeah, I don't think so, Tony. This tells me that the reason they took so long to form this grand jury and to come forward is exactly why these cases take long. You want to get all of the information you can compile together so that you can you can interview these witnesses with all the knowledge in your backpack. You already have the answers to a lot of it, and you want to test the veracity and what they're saying. So it tells me they have a lot of evidence and a lot of information already.
What does that mean in terms of no one being arrested yet? If they have all this information, what are they doing? Is it confirming the information? Is it finding out more people being involved? What do you think they're doing here with this grand jury testimony? And what's the goal here? What's the outcome planned to be once they wrap this up? Is it making an arrest, or where do you see this going here?
Well, first of all, I think what they want to do is they want to lock people into their testimony. By putting somebody before the grand jury, now they really can't change their mind. They have sworn testimony under oath, and so they can't change. That's number one. Number two, what else can they get out of them? There's going to be a lot of holes that these witnesses are going to be able to fill, and that's what law enforcement is looking to do. Finally, of course, this is the whole goal. They did not want to charge this case by what we call a criminal complaint or criminal information, which is merely where you write something out as to what happens to or before a judge in a criminal complaint and then arrest somebody. They wanted this fully investigated via this grand jury, and I think it was brilliant that they're going to indict as opposed to charge by complaint.
Go in with guns a-blazing, not just, well, let's see what we find. Basically, it's they're really waiting here. Is that does that tell you that they've known a lot for a long time, and they're really making sure their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted here?
Yeah, that's it. And I think also you want to put this already before the peers, before grand jury members that are going to be very similar to jurors in a courtroom, and see what the response is to all of this evidence, whether they know bill or true bill. If they true bill this, in other words, if they issue an indictment, that is so strong. Even though I know people say you can indict a ham sandwich, that's really garbage. You have to put on good evidence.
Let's talk about the one who didn't allegedly show up, and now they're seeking the body attachment to compel her testimony. That's allegedly what's going on right now. How common is it where you have a witness for a grand jury not showing up? And then how common is it that when they don't show, that you go for the body attachment, that you basically force them to come in? She can, of course, plead the fifth if she wants, but to actually compel them through a body attachment order to get them into the courtroom. Is this overly aggressive, or is this what does it tell us about what's going on here?
Well, this happens more often than you might think, particularly in situations like gang investigations or investigations where the individuals do not want to have to come forward and give testimony on the record. So this happens quite often, and attaching that body, as you said, what that means is they can arrest. What's interesting to me is if they will charge some sort of contempt charge related to the no-show situation or not. That we will wait to be seen. And by the way, I think that's probably the least of this person's problem.
Yeah, I mean, what would make someone not want to come in and testify? I mean, what's your thoughts there?
Two reasons, right? One is intimidation, being literally afraid to come forward and saying something, and then what consequences are you going to have after you testify and people find out? The second reason is because you're culpable in some way. You are worried it's all going to come out, and you know you're going to be locked down with that testimony. So I think those are the two reasons people don't go before a grand jury when they're subpoenaed.
Yeah. The manager, he's held multiple roles here. The record label GM, touring company president, day-to-day manager. If prosecutors believe that he had knowledge of the relationship between David and Celeste, or knowledge of what happened after her death, I mean, what kind of liability could he be personally facing, do you think?
It depends. He has to have overt acts that he did to cause Celeste not to be found or to participate in the cover-up. Oftentimes, knowledge alone won't be enough, other than, as I mentioned, for some misdemeanor charge concerning failure to report, something like that. But I think what they're going to do is just use this to get him to cooperate. He's the type of person you want to cooperate and be on your side as the government, because he's going to have a lot of inside knowledge. And the fact he was on the stand for 3 solid days tells me all I need to know about the breadth of that knowledge.
What is your gut telling you as an FBI agent? I mean, what is your gut saying? Not that you need to predict anything, but is there something just poking at you that, ooh, you've seen this before?
Well, I've said it from day one. No one dismembers a body on their own. You have a party to do that. In all seriousness, you invite others. It is complicated. That body is heavy. That body is in rigor. It's not going to move. You need somebody to get a hacksaw and a hatchet. It's a lot of work to just cut. I'm trying not to be too graphic, but
Sure.
It's just a lot of work. The blood, the cleanup. What are you going to do? It takes more than one mind. And as I've always said, these guys aren't going to do something like this alone, meaning David, if it's David's held responsible ultimately for this murder, if it was a murder, or you're going to get other people to help. I've always said from day one, look for others, not just David, to be involved in this. And there might be multiple others.
Do you think we're going to see David called in here at all to the grand jury for any sort of testimony? He has not obviously testified as of yet. Various reports out, the early reports saying, oh, he's cooperating, later reports saying he's not. So it's a big, we don't know. Where do you think this goes? Do you think this is where they're squeezing the people below who they think had something to do with this? David, I mean, it's easy for us to go and say, oh, he must be at the top of this chain. I don't, just because of his fame. Other than that, I mean, we don't really know if he's at the top of the chain. Fame doesn't mean you're at the top of this murder chain. Yes, it's the car that's registered to him, but there's a lot of people in an ecosystem of a celebrity like this. A lot of people, a lot of moving parts. It's a business. It's a company, basically, that's being run. And sometimes in companies, there's secrets. People like to, if they don't want to have something be known, especially by your boss, if David is the boss, you may try and conceal it. You may try and hide it. You may be using company property to do those sort of things. So is it a stretch that everybody is looking at David as being one of, the main people, one of the main players in this as a suspect? I know he's been named as a suspect, but is that everyone just going too far too quick just because of the role that he plays with his celebrity in this case versus what reality may actually be?
Okay, let me address a couple of these.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's not because he's a celebrity that he's at the top of the chain. He's at the top of the chain because A, he's been named a suspect, as you mentioned. Number 2, he was the one that had a relationship with her. Number 3, she was underage. Number 4, the body was found in his car. Number 5, he took a complete powder afterwards. Number 6, he decided to put his properties in his mama's name after all of this happened. As far as cooperation, Tony, he was never cooperative. That is what the attorney said, and that's what all attorneys say. My client is cooperative. That is absolute baloney, in my opinion. Yeah. He will be called before the grand jury, and he will plead the fifth.
So do you think they're just waiting to get all of their ducks in a row before they haul in the gold?
Sure, that's exactly what they're doing. And they're well anticipating the fifth, so they may decide they don't even need to call him. But I think they might call him just to get it on record that he pled the fifth in a grand jury. But they might not. I think they will want to put that before the grand jurors. Everyone wants to hear from the guy. Everyone wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear. Everybody wants that person to look them in the eye as a juror and say, I don't know anything about this. I loved Celeste. I can't believe this has happened. That's not what they're going to hear, but that's what they want to hear. So I think they'll put them before the grand jury.
You think this is going to end up with multiple charges of different types? I mean, obviously concealing a body, all that's going to be in there. But I'm wondering what else we're going to find. What other charges are going to come to light here in this case? What are your thoughts on that laundry list that may come to light here soon?
Well, I tell you, I would love to be part of the cast team working on this and looking at what happened afterwards, looking at all the telephone calls, the long discussions, who all is in that web cellularly or text message. I'd love to see these text messages. I bet there's going to be Google searches. I think I would have a heyday looking at all of that. I think that is going to be what helps line this case out.
Yeah. Criminal defense attorney Mark Garagos dropped a significant development in the Two Angry Men podcast. LAPD investigators have identified a second suspect in the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. According to Garagos, this individual is believed to have been involved before, during, and after Celeste's death, not as the killer, but potentially in the disposal and dismemberment of her body. Investigators reportedly built their case using a combination of cell phone data, Tesla GPS logs, and social media location tracking, a digital trail Garagos describes as being accurate, almost to the minute. A key focus is the late-night trip David allegedly took to a remote area of Santa Barbara County in spring of 2025, where authorities believe another person may have been in the vehicle. Retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer is with us, helping us break this down and explaining how investigators use digital forensics to identify co-conspirators and what this second suspect actually means for the case. Let's go back. You know Mark. You are on a lot of panels with Mark on a lot of different channels and such. What do you think? Why do you think that trip out in the middle of nowhere is standing out so significantly to Mark right now when he's looking at this case? I mean, they are young. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. People go out for drives. People go do this. People go do that. To say, well, over here, this one night, this must be where something took place. What's your take on that? Is this like a very clear indicator of something that may have happened out in the wilderness?
Yes. It is. Look, there's Mulholland Drive and there's his mansion if he wants to make out. There's no reason to drive all the way down to Santa Barbara County and go in this secluded area. And Mark Garagos he's defended some of the most infamous murderers there are, and he understands the tricks. And just for Mark, who is a consummate defense type attorney, to say how significant this is significant. So I believe him. I think that this trail, as we talked about, is going to be the absolute key to the case. And why are they out there? This, singer, who always says he doesn't like to touch the grass. His grass is his social media community. It's so significant, whatever went on out there. And hopefully, maybe through geofencing or some tracking GPS on those phones in the car, they can figure out exactly where this happened. I think there'll be a lot of evidence out there.
How well do you think the evidence has been preserved in existence, not wiped clean? I mean, some of this you can't wipe clean. Some of it's just there. It's going to be there no matter how. If you try to delete it, you can't. These are younger folks. They know the technology. Well, you'd think they would know the technology better than older folks, but better than say a Brian Walsh, who's Googling how to chop up his wife and such. I'm curious as to what you think they may end up finding here in the digital footprint. Or what they may have already found in the digital footprint on devices and such at this point in time.
I think they're going to find a lot. Look, you really just can't hide it. You can hide some, but you can't hide it all. So I think it's going to be a plethora of information that leads to who all was involved in this and who all was out there. That Tesla we've talked about, the one thing you cannot disable on a Tesla is the GPS information. We talked about whether it's in sentry mode or not, and how that might not be helpful if they thought to put it off of sentry mode, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see where it tracked to. So in answer to your question, it's going to be a lot of information, and it's going to be the downfall to these people.
So somebody in our chat, Gen Z, asked, do we know if Tesla's technology saves to the cloud indefinitely?
Save to the cloud indefinitely. I think once it hits the cloud, it's there. So you can try to erase it, but basically to the answer, no, you can't erase what happened. The Tesla information is rock solid when it comes to GPS.
Sure.
It's there. Yeah. It's just, it's like, it's going basically like going to a cell phone tower data and saying, I want to delete my cell phone tower data. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
It's
Nice
there.
try.
You're not going to be deleting that. Garagos is suggesting that the digital evidence may show the second suspect was also in the Tesla during that Santa Barbara trip. Number one, we don't even know who suspect number one truly is. I mean, yes, we know David has been named as a suspect. So if we're talking about this trip in this car, who are we talking about? I mean, we don't have to name names, but are we talking about David essentially being one of these people and then somebody else with him? Are we talking about two unidentified people here? What are they talking about? Because there's just so much that is not known in this case yet.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're talking about David.
Okay.
I've always said I believe this is David. We've wrapped around it, right? We've tried to give him every deference we can and say, well, listen, maybe this, maybe one of his underlings. Look, all roads point to David and an accomplice. Now, is that Neo, one of his closest friends, or somebody else? We don't know. But now we know there's an accomplice, and that is just so unsurprising. Like I said, I think a lot of people knew about this, and I think at least one or more people helped with that dismemberment.
With conspiracies, the thing that always shoots them down is that there's multiple people involved. And when you have multiple people involved in something, it's hard to keep a secret. Now, granted, we are, less than a year into this, but we're getting there. Are you surprised that more people haven't been singing about this yet? I mean, I'm not trying to make a literal analogy where he has made songs about this stuff, allegedly, but literally talking about it, that no one has leaked information, that if there's multiple people involved here, which it appears there probably is, with knowledge of some shape or form of what is going on here, are you surprised that there hasn't been more people speaking about this or flipping on this or exposing who's behind this? This seems like a very tight crew.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's a tight crew. It's almost like a gang case. Whenever gang cases, it's unbelievable. Nobody wants to say anything. They take care of their own business, and they don't want law enforcement anywhere near this. And I think that this is a similar culture. That they don't trust law enforcement. They're not going to go forward to law enforcement, and that they can keep their mouth shut. However, having said that, I think there's a lot we don't know. We can't really say for sure that nobody has gone forward. It's possible somebody has gone forward and been interviewed. We just don't know about it. And TMZ has only been hanging out in the hallway, for a couple of weeks. How long has that grand jury been in session? How long did it take to leak about that at grand jury? So we don't know a lot yet. But I agree with you. Just the fact that there weren't more rumblings in social media, like my cousin said he was at a party and this person, I'm hearing that.
In our chat section, Gen Z and I are thinking on the same lines, and you referenced it earlier. Is it possible we have somebody like a Diddy going on here that, they would talk, but they're so terrified of the consequences of speaking that they're just not going to talk?
Hey, look, we have what I believe to be a dismembered and certainly a dead 14-year-old.
Right.
That they were capable of that. Plus, remember, we also have the art that, we can argue all day long whether the art is imitating life or life is imitating art, blah, blah, blah. But he's very dark. Yeah. And the fact that his art loves to talk about death and putting dead people in trunks and having blood all over him, I mean, that gives an indication what he's capable of. And then don't forget, if we're even to believe it, because that guy's in a lot of hot water now with the law for blabbing, the PI who was in there said that the things he read was unbelievable in terms of horrifying and what they had planned. So you put that all together, and I'd be terrified too.
What does it tell us about how tight and quiet they're being, or this crew is being, about any knowledge here about the actual crime itself? And I say crime itself, I'm not saying murder, I'm just saying crime. The crime being that there's a body in a trunk. That in itself is certainly a crime. But how she got there, why she's there, how she died, all of that we still don't know the answers to. Is it more likely that this was some sort of an accident and these kids, because that's what they literally are, panicked? I mean, basically pulled a Brian Walsh story of panic. We don't know what to do. We got to hide the body, dismember it. I have a little more, I guess, understanding for folks who don't have their prefrontal cortex developed in this case versus Brian Walsh for making a horrible, horrible choice, if that's what went on. Horrible accident, panic versus murder. And I'm wondering if either of those seem more likely based on the reactions or based on the locked down lack of communication that we're seeing from that crew. Would they be more likely to be quiet if this was more of an accident versus a, somebody got mad and killed her?
Look, say it was an OD. Say she accidentally fell over, banged her head, and they didn't know what to do. No, people do not dismember for those types of deaths. They just don't. I can't think of one case where somebody just accidentally died and the people around her said, you know what's a good idea? Let's go get a hacksaw and let's cut them into pieces and throw them out.
Go to Lowe's and Home Depot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So whenever you have something this egregious of a reaction, as you're calling it, what is the onset of that? The onset of that typically is nefarious and being responsible in some way for her death.
Yeah. Private investigator Steve Fisher previously said surveillance footage shows who parked the Tesla in its final location on July 29th, the same day David left for the tour. If that person is the second suspect, what does it tell you about the relationship between them and David? And it also, I guess we have to ask the question of, just because you're moving the car around for David doesn't necessarily mean you know that what's in the frunk of the car of David. So again, there's a lot of questions of who knew what and when, and I'm assuming this is probably a lot of what they're trying to get to the bottom of with this grand jury investigation.
Tony, my little devil advocate, listen, you would never trust a car of yours that has a dead body in it with somebody that didn't know there was a dead body in it. That air freshener, that little Christmas tree, I think it was, that did nothing to hide that stench. I mean, people walking by that car could smell it. So I argue that whoever did that, again, that is one of those accessory after the facts. That's a clear, overt act that they did, and they are going to be so culpable in this. Again, if it's not David, right? Yeah. We don't know. That could be the other person, or it could be David, or it could be a third person. We don't know. But they're going to be culpable for that. And I believe they well knew. It's kind of like the drug dealer that would tell me, oh, yeah, I got 150 kilos in the car. I had no idea. The guy just gave me the keys and told me to drive to Santa Monica. I have no idea. Yeah, you know exactly what's in there.
Especially a decomposing body. How are you not going to know that,
Yeah. I mean, it is now the time where investigators are going to be making deals with folks saying, okay, and this is just pure conjecture. And just for example, say they're talking to the person who drove the car and the person knew there was a body in it. Is this the time where they're like, okay, look, that's a crime in itself. You could go away for a long time just for doing that, unless you tell us who told you to move the car, who gave you these directives to do this. Is this where they're going to make those deals to get to where they need to go? Because obviously you probably don't need to charge a ton of people in this if they're acting under duress or they're making just really piss poor decisions because of who they're around at that moment in time. You want to get to the real player here, whoever did this, if someone is in fact responsible for it. Is this where the deals are being made prior to more charges or charges in general being brought against somebody?
Tony, this is the litmus test. What do they have on that person other than the movement of the car? Were they involved in other aspects of her death, dismemberment? What all were they involved in? If they were deeply involved, they may not make that deal with them. They want to make the deal with the people who are most cursory and who are least involved in whatever actions took place. One of the people I think they would make a deal with is that manager. The other thing is, perjury can carry some pretty decent weight. And so that's another reason why they like using this grand jury, because once they're locked in, those are other charges they could charge people if they're not telling them the truth.
One more on this case. What the hell do you think is this a pure conjecture? What the hell do you think is going through the manager's mind if he's informed that there's a body found in the frunk of your artist, David, and you're like, that's not my job to call the police? Like, obviously money is going through their mind because they want this tour to keep going and he's your cash cow. But other than money, or is that it? Is that the only thing that's going through one's mind? I don't know how anyone would skip over the idea of, well, unless you're already thinking the authorities already know the answer to this, or that they've already been informed, and it's not your job to call, because clearly, if you're hearing about it, hopefully somebody knows. What do you think is going on there in that reasoning of that manager when told, if told, hey, by the way, David had a body in the frunk?
All right, you're going to make me sing it. Money, 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 money.
Yeah.
Money. This
That's
is
it.
all about money and protecting that artist. And the other thing is, listen, there are so many people devoid of morals. There just are. The bell doesn't go off in their head. It kind of goes off in a very quiet way. I wonder if, nah. I got all this over here. So this is strictly a combination, 80% money and 20% absolutely no morals.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be thinking, I don't know. I mean, it's such a childish way of thinking of like, well, it'll just go away. No, there's a body in the trunk of your artist. That's a big deal. That's not just going to like, oh, you found it? Well, what's he doing for lunch? It's not just going to go away. It's not just going to be glossed over. But I guess wishful thinking mixed in with ignorance and money. I don't know. How
about this, Tony? How about what the hell, David? And David said, we got a plan. Don't worry, we got a plan on such and such a date. I have such and such coming, and they're going to take it to such and such a place. And don't worry, I got this covered. And then the manager says, all right, let me see how this rides out.
And let's just stay on tour.
There were conversations. Guarantee you. This manager managed everything. And that's the right-hand man for these people. There's a woman that I am, blessed to train, who's in the movie industry, and she has an assistant. I can tell you that assistant knows everything. These managers, these assistants, these people that they trust, they know everything, and that's why he kept his mouth shut. I hope they charge him with something minimal at least, so he has it on his record.
Well, and it worked for a while. It was quiet for a while. How long had that body been sitting there and nothing happened? So they probably thought, cool, it did work out.
If they would have thrown it in a body of water, her in a body of water later, probably, or left her in Santa Barbara, it might have worked out, period.
Yeah.
But they're just too stupid. They're dumb criminals that aren't used to doing whatever they did. So
and so you got a bunch of teenagers like, we got this. We got this, boss. We're going to take care of this.
What did I see on that TV show? Let's try this.
Yeah. It's not going to work out well in the end. All right, let's move on to another case. A mother in Arkansas spent 9 months telling anyone who would listen that she was going to die. Charity Beallis went to a state senator. She posted on social media. She shared statistics about strangulation and murder. She wrote publicly that the prosecutor wouldn't take her letters and that the system was protecting her abuser, a local doctor who had choked her in front of their 6-year-old twins. On December 2nd, a judge awarded that man joint custody. On December 3rd, Charity and both children were found shot to death. No arrests have been made as of yet. The Secret Service and Homeland Security have joined the investigation of the doctor's first wife. She also died from a gunshot wound back in 2012.
Wow.
Ruled a suicide. Evidence the family is asking for that to be looked at a little closer in light of recent findings. Again, no one's been charged, so I got to say that the doctor's maintaining his innocence, saying, I'm grieving, this is horrible, blah blah blah. So what the hell's happening here? Former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer joining us to discuss. Jennifer, when you look at the timeline here, the strangulation in February, custody awarded in December, 3 people dead the next day. What does your investigative instinct tell you about what happened in that house?
All right. Well, we've talked about it. I'm an Occam's razor girl, first of all.
Yeah.
Number 2, who has the motive? Who has the means? Who has the opportunity? Mm-hmm. You look at those 3 things and you answer those 3 questions. And they're going to be focusing in, obviously, on the husband and looking at, or estranged husband, and looking at, did he have those 3 items, and then dialing down from there. But I mean, he's the obvious suspect. You can never put on your, binoculars and not look at peripheral possibilities. But clearly it's looking very positive for him.
I mean, go ahead, Stacey.
As a woman, and we do have a lot of women in our chat section right now, what the hell else can we do if we are in a situation, and I don't want to divert the conversation, but just stepping back from this, she was pleading for help, and I'm about ready to blow and say a bunch of F words here. What the F more did she need to do to say, I am in danger, people? Would somebody freaking help me?
Well, I'd like to say, Stacey, that this is unusual, but it's just not.
It's not.
Goes on all the time, and women do everything they can. Oftentimes they do everything right. They get, the orders, the stay away orders. And you know what, the bottom line is, if an individual, a domestic violence person disposed of that is going to do it, they're probably going to get their target, no matter how much they ask for help. It's really sad to say that. I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment, of having a gun, of having cameras, of keeping your locks or your doors shut. Listen, a guy like that is a family annihilator.
Yeah.
You got to look it up. There's 4 different kinds, and this is a guy who's going to take everyone out, just to spite him, just to spite them.
Yeah. And we don't know who did this yet. Nobody's been charged. But if we're to read the tea leaves, it looks pretty damning. I mean, in a situation like this, if it's him, or just more generally speaking of family annihilators, do they tend to care if they're going to get caught, if they're going to go and carry out their plan? Do cameras matter? Obviously, pieces of paper don't matter, the restraining orders, all of that. But you can have cameras. You can certainly have a weapon. And unfortunately, if she did, it didn't work or wasn't used. But do any of those things stop? Are there things in place beyond the piece of paper that tend to make the family annihilator take a step back for fear of being caught? The obvious reality is if they don't care, well, then there's absolutely nothing stopping them.
They don't care, Tony. Their number one focus is annihilating that spouse or annihilating their full family, even their children. And so nothing's going to stop them. And if they die in the process, they die in the process. That's not their number one goal. And then secondarily, some, though, commit suicide after. And then others, Tony, if they get caught, listen, these are people who think they can get out of everything. And they think that this was deserved. And they think that people are going to look at them that way. As you talk about narcissists, I always say, listen, I'm not a PhD. I don't like to say that, but we all know what narcissistic actions are. And typically, when you're going to annihilate your family and kill your children, again, we don't know this is him, but that's a narcissistic person.
Narcissism always wins. Not the narcissist. It destroys them too. But the narcissism, the people who are practicing it are the ones, the actual, if we're to classify it as a disease, and it's not, but if you look at it like that, it will win. It will take over, and it will do its thing. 750% more likely to be killed by an abuser if someone is strangled by their partner. Victims are 750% more likely to be killed by their abuser if they've been strangled by them. We see this time and time again, and then we see it go to family court, which is where this went, for custody. In this scenario, they did not have joint custody for almost a year. He was ordered to have no contact with her or the children. Then suddenly, the judge, in her infinite wisdom, said, yeah, 50-50. This seems like a great idea. What the hell is going on in a judge's mind, in your opinion, in a situation like this where she's warning of all of this? Why take the chance? Why put small children in the care of someone that we know had the propensity to choke out his wife, allegedly, and then, oh, well, this is great. You two aren't getting along great, but you go ahead and you take care of those kids half the time. That is, I mean, it's asinine, but we see it all the time. And now the judge doesn't like the attention. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I mean, why rulings like this? Is it because they have no choice? They have to give some custody? I don't think that's always it. It just seems like very poor decision making.
Well, Tony, I am on a long-term, year-long plus rant against all of these judges releasing people that are making rulings like this that result in people being murdered. And I really think I don't understand why they can't be charged. And I'm serious with that. Something needs to be held over their head that if you are so dumb to not look at the facts that are involved and then just release the person out on their potential victims, that if you're reading it wrong, you're for sure off the bench, and secondarily have to consider being charged. I just think it's terrible what's happening in our judicial system. You ask me, why do I think they do? I think they're ignorant. They don't understand this type of violence. I think that they look at the Haro case. Little baby Emmanuel Haro, that judge was a complete idiot.
Jesse Butler.
I could go on and on. Nikki Soleil. Just, the options are endless because these judges sit on the bench, listen a little bit, want to make everybody happy, and then they go home and have tea or a martini. It's just shocking to me what's happening in our judicial system.
It's an interesting course of events in this case. It's kind of a side story to the story that's developed. The judge, Shannon Blatt, who apparently doesn't like the attention for her ruling, she's decided to, I guess, make herself be known more. Like, it's amazing to me sometimes where it's like, if you don't want more attention, then just shut the fuck up. Don't make this about you. But she's making it about her. The allegation is the father of Charity was on a phone call with the office, with her court office, and said something to the effect of, well, she might as well have pulled the trigger herself because of the ruling. And this is from his perspective, that he's assuming that the husband has something to do with this. Again, no one's been charged, but that's how he's looking at it. So he makes this statement. It's not a threat. It's just a statement. It's an angry father who's grieving. His 2 grandchildren are dead and his daughter's dead after she's been complaining for a year and screaming, my God, I'm afraid he's going to kill me. And then she makes this ruling and the next day they're dead. So yes, she, in my opinion, she's lucky that's all he's done is just said these harsh words. But she goes and gets a court order of protection against the dad. Again, as far as we know, there was no threats made. It was just simply an angry man voicing his opinion.
It feels performative.
It feels very performative. It feels very much, look at me. What do you make of this, where the judge is getting this protective order for herself when they're, I mean, again, from what we can see in our perspective, there's not a threat here against you, Judge, but there's a lot of people who are angry because you made a bad choice. How does that read to you?
Well, I tell you what, it was disgusting. From this perspective, look, if it ends up being that he is charged and he's proven guilty, if I were that judge, and anybody with any moral compass would step down from the bench.
Yeah.
Because you would look in the mirror and forever see those three faces, number one. And number two, you need to doubt your own ability to judge in a court of law. Yeah. That's what you should be saying to self, I don't think I'm very good at this job. And that's that. And instead, Tony, she takes an action like this, not anything that seems to be, I'm sorry. I nothing like that. In other words, she's proactively being aggressive toward the grieving dad. It's really something. She should not be on the bench.
It is shocking. It's when I saw that, I'm like, are you serious? Really? The Secret Service and Homeland Security have joined this investigation. What does federal involvement at this level signal to you about where this case might be heading?
Well, we say they're involved in the investigation. Secret Service has an amazing program for cellular analysis. They have some tools that the FBI doesn't even have, and the FBI has some tools they don't have. Anyway, I think that would be the angle that they would be involved. But if you're talking about involved to protect her, No,
involved in the investigation.
That's
off of the judge. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was confused whether.
No, just into the investigation.
Dual nexus. So usually when you hear Secret Service is involved, because they don't do investigations, they investigate credit card fraud, and they have a great cellular program, as I said. Other than that, that's why they're involved. Homeland Security also has some tools. But I'm surprised Homeland Security would be involved. But
is there? I mean, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, this is. Do they get involved in local investigations and things like this, or does it have to cross state lines? Keep in mind they lived pretty much on the border of Oklahoma and Arkansas, so state lines have probably been crossed in some way, shape, or form. In this case, on some level, it would be my just guess at this point.
But the issue is they have no jurisdiction. Homeland Security is basically U.S. Customs. They changed their name to, under Bush, decided we're going to just revamp. I remember they were initially, you might not have known this, initially they changed it to BICE, the Bureau of, and then the Bureau got all mad. They didn't like that at all. So then they took off the B and just made it ICE. But my point is, I can't even see any jurisdiction. But what I can see sometimes is resources. That for sure is why Secret Service is involved, I believe. And maybe Homeland Security as well, is really more resources, something they have that's going to be beneficial.
Is that because locally they might be looking at this going, we don't have the abilities to do these sort of things, so we need you guys to step in and use your resources to help us connect these dots?
Yeah, 100%. I'll give you another case where Secret Service got involved, and that was in the the sicko that attacked his wife's daughter. Gosh, I'm angry. I can't remember this name for years, and then ultimately killed her. Had all the pornographic evidence. I can't remember his name to save my life this minute. I've erased it. Down in Florida, he didn't get the death penalty.
That doesn't narrow it down, sadly.
Are you talking?
Isn't it sad? From the age of about 9 to 11 or 12, and then she turned 11.
Stearns.
Stefan Stearns.
Yeah, Stefan Stearns. Gosh, I can't see. I've erased his name from my mind.
Well, there's so many that we have to keep track of.
And by the way, I'm just going to bring this up. Somebody who did I actually have seen, all the pictures. It's so disgusting. I mean, as his body parts and everything. But nevertheless, I don't want to digress down that road. Sure. But my point is, Secret Service was employed in that. When I say employed, was helped in that investigation again to get some of the deleted items and so forth. So that's where I'm saying Secret Service is sort of famous for that within federal law enforcement. We know how amazing they are working digital evidence. Yeah. The Bureau is too. And then the Bureau may have just been busy, or there was a connection between the local authority and Secret Service agents. I still am puzzled at Homeland Security. They have no jurisdiction, but they might have some resource that I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
What's happening with this man as a potential suspect having a medical degree? Do you think he's being allowed to practice at this time?
Yeah, until he's proven guilty, he's allowed to do everything unless there's something that they have that he would have used in the office or something like that with this crime that somebody who employs him could be upset about. In other words, I don't know whether he works for himself, whether he works in his office with associates for a hospital, whatever it may be. But if he is employed, unless they make the decision, because they can terminate whenever they want, he's likely still working.
Yeah, I don't know what that employment status is. He actually had been working within the same health system that I use because I'm here in this area. I actually recognize the photo of him where he's standing and smiling. I'm like, I know exactly where that photo was taken. That's at the doctor's office I go to. But I did a little look the other day within the Mercy health system, and I could not find him being listed as a doctor within the system. That's not to say he isn't, because those searches aren't always the greatest, but I don't know what the status is since the original charges earlier in the year for the strangulation. Let's talk about the other elephant in the room, and obviously he has not been charged with anything as of yet. He maintains his innocence, so anything is speculation. The second wife, she killed herself. It was ruled a suicide by gunshot. The odds here, if we're just playing the odds game of having 2 out of 3 spouses, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, according to Meatloaf. That's not a common thing. I mean, your odds on that are like 1 in a million, if that, literally. You're
really unlucky in love.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just shocking that you'd have 2 killed by gunshot. This coincidence?
Likely not. They need to go back and look at that really closely. I'm curious what side of if it was in the temple, if it was in the mouth. I'm so curious about GSR. I would love to see all those reports. I mean, how many cases have we seen where it was initially ruled a suicide because of poor police work and investigation, particularly when you have somebody like a doctor involved, somebody who is a high-standing member of the community, and they just believe everything they have to say without doing proper investigation. So I'm glad they're going to relook at that because it doesn't make any sense to me that there's 2 out of 3.
The day after Charity's body was found, Randall's attorney filed to dismiss the divorce. The day after, arguing the paperwork wasn't finalized, so he's legally a widower. She hadn't signed everything yet, not an ex-husband. Look, if you didn't do this, this is still a horrible optic to be playing. What the hell do you think is going on here in this person's mind? I mean, I'm surprised the attorney didn't say, "Hey, let's give it a moment. Let's take a beat before we file this." But it's like less than 24 hours. The bodies are like just being removed. I'm like, oh, let's try and get this divorce off the record. What the hell does that tell you about any of this?
Oh, Tony, this guy doesn't care. I mean, he's willing. Wait a minute. Let me be clear. If he ends up being responsible for this, he doesn't even care about his small children. He doesn't care about the wife of his children. So he certainly doesn't care about the optic. What he does care about, and he's thinking about, I think, is likely money.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, he wants to be still entitled to whatever they have jointly. He doesn't want that all caught up in probate. So as a widower, he's going to have that. As a divorcee, he's got more issues. So
well, and it speaks to the optics that here's somebody who, and again, he hasn't been charged, and like Tony said, he's maintaining his innocence at this point, but it does go to the optics that he appears to be more concerned about his reputation in being wrapped up in this versus, oh my God, my wife and children are gone. He should be more concerned about how do I continue with my life at this point versus, oh, let's make me a widower versus somebody who's getting divorced. That just something about this just doesn't, it's not vibing.
It's horrible. I mean, it's just, it just looks horrific no matter any way you spin it.
Everything about it looks horrible.
Yeah.
Name one thing that doesn't look bad for this guy.
You can't enjoy your money. You can't enjoy all of that stuff if you're locked up. So why are you going, if you didn't do this, if you have nothing to do with this, why are you performing in ways or in public that certainly make you look like you had something to do with it? I mean, I guess it just kind of goes though to their mindset, completely clueless as to the optics of how others are perceiving them, because narcissists are just so wrapped up in themselves. If this is what's going on, it just clueless as to how others are perceiving, because he's only seeing it how he wants people to perceive him.
And he's in damage control. Like, I need to fix this so everybody thinks I look better instead of what's going on.
And I'm curious about this too, and to get your thoughts, because this kind of came into my mind, how Alec Murtaugh with the family annihilation there, big on the pills. We hear through some unconfirmed information that we've gotten from people who have allegedly knew the family, knew him, knew the first wife, who's alive and actually a practicing physician in this area. They were in Illinois for a long period of time before they moved to Arkansas. We've confirmed all of that. An allegation has been made that that there was an accident of some sort at some point in time, and that he may allegedly have gotten onto some pills for pain recovery and such. And the allegation from some friends is that after that, he was never the same person. He was a happy-go-lucky goofball, is how he was described back in Illinois. But then after that, after he went to Arkansas, very different human being. It's interesting because we see a lot of cases like this where it seems you get the pills involved, you get something like that involved, you have a very different human being capable of very different things that others otherwise may have never been capable of.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the whole addiction piece and people who get hooked. I mean, we've all either been around it with somebody we know. For me professionally, I've seen it. It's unbelievable, the monsters people can become. You're talking about no inhibition, and you're talking about the only focus in their life is to make sure they have that next pill in their mouth or that next needle in their arm. So it's a totally different perspective. And do I think it could have, if he's responsible, could have been a factor? 100%. A lot of these crimes don't go on with people who are in their right mind from a not being intoxicated standpoint, right? I'm trying to think. There's just so many that they were intoxicated or they were under the influence. So I think it's very usual.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions here. With a case like this, with as damning as it looks as of right now, how long until there would be an arrest, in your opinion, with all these agencies looking at this, and it seems to be in high gear? If it's him, if he has something to do with this, or whoever it is, how long do you think until there's an arrest made? If they have some pretty clear evidence pointing towards someone?
Not long. They're going to want to get him in. Look, if he did this, he is so unhinged and so capable of harming others. So they're going to want to get him in ASAP if it is him. Yeah, but they want to make sure, look, that prosecutor is going to say, I don't just want probable cause here. I need beyond a reasonable doubt before I haul him in. But he's coming in. If it is him, they'll get him off the street.
Well, allegedly he's cooperating fully. That's according to his attorney, that he's doing whatever they're asking of him. Does that mean anything when someone is cooperating fully like this in an investigation, if you had something to do with it?
Well, two things. Look at Alex Murdaugh. I'm glad you brought him up because he cooperated the whole time, even up to trial. He was cooperating on that stand.
Sure.
Right. So I take that with a grain of salt. The other thing is, as we talked about in the other case, is, attorneys are always going to paint the, he's cooperative. He's done everything in his power to help, but typically that's not the case.
Yeah. It's it oftentimes is a ruse of some sort, and people thinking they're being trickier than they actually are. It's gonna be fascinating to see where this plays out. Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your insight on these cases today, as always. And until next time, for Todd and Stacy and Jennifer, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.